This lesson shows how to solve linear systems by the substitution method. A linear system has two equations. Each equation has two variables, x and y, so neither equation can be solved. However, if you substitute one equation into the other, you have an equation with only one variable, which can be solved for x equal 2.5. Once you have the value of x, substitute into the other equation, and you can solve for y equals -2. And you have the solution to the linear system. That was the general strategy. Now, let's look at the details. Substitution works best when one of the variables in either equation has a coefficient of 1 or -1. In this example, notice that in the second equation, the y variable has a coefficient of -1. It would be easy to solve this equation for the y variable. There are different ways to solve for the y variable. Here is the easiest. Begin by adding y to both sides of the equation. Then subtract 7 from both sides. Flip it around, and you have y equals 2x minus 7. Now that you have solved the second equation for the y variable, go back to the first equation and substitute y equals 2x minus 7. Now, the first equation has only one variable, and you can solve for x. To solve the equation for x, distribute the 3 for 6x minus 21. Then combine 4x and 6x for 10x. Add 21 to both sides for 10x equals 25. Finally, divide both sides by 10 for x equal 2.5. So now the system has been solved for one of the variables. Substitute x equal 2.5 into the first equation. Then simplify the expression to solve for y equals -2. Now that you have solved for both variables, you have a solution to the system. Always check your solutions in the original equations. For the first equation, substitute x equal 2.5 and y equals -2. Then 4 times 2.5 is 10, and 3 times -2 is -6. Finally, 10 minus 6 is 4, and the first equation checks. For the second equation, substitute x equal 2.5 and y equals -2. Then 2 times 2.5 is 5. Negative and -2 is +2. Finally, 5 plus 2 is 7. And the second equation checks. To summarize, Begin with the second equation because the y variable has a coefficient of -1. Solve the equation for y. Next, go back to the first equation and substitute y equals 2x minus 7. Now the equation only has an x variable. Solve for x equal 2.5. Now, substitute x equal 2.5 into the other equation and solve for y equals -2. Now that you have solved for both variables, you have a solution to the system. Remember, always check your solution. This lesson has been brought to you by the Math Fun Academy. Its continuing mission to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new math and new equations, to boldly go where no math student has gone before.